if we can collect any other news, then I can promote that as well to the whole association. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and going back to something I just forgot, I know at the end of this school year, several of our members, we often will have a changing of the guard in terms of our roles here in terms of the leadership of our organization. So this is my second year as president of the association. So I'll be rolling off from that position. I know several of our officers are still willing to stick around. Mark, and I thought I saw Dave floating around on here, taking some serious notes over there. And Nancy Hajali is here, and she filled in as our treasurer. And I know Nancy and I have just been having some conversation about continuing on in a leadership position. So I'm kind of like hooking her in, and I know she's saying yes to that. So we're really excited about that. So, but just always keeping that open. We love to see our members really be an active part of our planning of meetings, because this is important for our whole group and our whole Western New York community. So it's really nice to see people joining our meetings. And also we encourage everybody to step up and play a role in helping out plan events. So does anybody else have anything that they would like to add, or questions that they need to throw out to our group before our presenter begins today?
Just really quickly, thanks to everyone who has submitted their memberships and made their payments and everything. I've been happy to fill in for Caroline this year while she was out on leave. And this is a great group, and hopefully you all find it really valuable. And I know we've had some great meetings this year. If you do still need to become a member or send memberships, just continue to send them to me at Lancaster High School, and I'll take care of those for you. And I look forward to seeing everyone at our future meetings.
Absolutely. Thank you on that. And I know the scholarship deadline actually, I believe, is today. So those should, so if you still have any of those floating around your office, please send them over to our office here. Cheryl Goldstone is our liaison for the scholarships. So please make sure you get that over to our office today. And also make sure your membership is current if you are having students apply for that scholarship, because that is a piece for the scholarship. So, and with that said, I have Danielle Vallis here. So thank you for joining us today, Danielle. She has lots of information to share regarding mindfulness, and she's actually working in one of our local schools. She's at Nichols, so she helps out students in that way and has a private practice. So we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me and being here. I love to see who else is in the community doing similar types of work. So yes, I have something set up for us today. Way too much information. So I'm trying to think about giving you a sprinkling of 3 very important topics. So I'm going to actually go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So what are we going to talk about this morning? We're going to talk about self-care, and I say it's more than a buzzword because it's really a hot word right now, but I'm going to bring you through what self-care is all about. I'm going to introduce bringing yoga and mindfulness to your school, and then also a little sprinkling of EMDR. So again, I could go hours on each of these topics. So this is just going to be a brief overview. And if you have specific interest in learning more, I'm happy to come back to this group or to your school or to any other organization to share my information. Okay. So to let you know what we're going to do for the next hour together, I'm going to tell you who I am and why I'm here. We'll do a quick meditation together. We're going to talk about self-care for counselors, and then we're actually going to do some self-care activities. We're then going to talk about some mindfulness. We'll do a mindful movement together, and then how to bring yoga and mindfulness to your school. And then again, an introduction to EMDR in your school. So as I said before, we're going to do some hands-on activities. So if you grab some paper and a pen, that would be really great. Great. Okay, so who am I? So my name is Danielle Vallis, like Terry said. I have a master's in health education and a master's in mental health counseling. I work at Nichols. I've been there for 16 years, Currently, I'm the director of wellness. I've been in that role since day one, where I've created our wellness curriculum and also any sort of health and wellness programming around our school. I've worn lots of other hats. I've coached lots of different sports. I was a dean, all sorts of different things. And I'm also the school mental health counselor. And in this role, I've actually created this role because we didn't have anyone specifically. We have at Nichols, it's different because we're an independent school. So we have college counselors and we have deans, but we didn't anyone really focusing on the social emotional needs of the students. So I went to the school about 10 years ago and said, hey, there's this need. I want to fill it. So I went back to school and then created this really unique role. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the Buffalo community. I have two practice locations. I have an office by UB North and an office in Hamburg. I also do teletherapy as well. In that role, I primarily work with teenagers and young adults. I specialize in the treatment of eating disorders and body image issues. So I'd say about 70% of my practice is eating disorder work. However, I do, a sprinkling of everything else, basic teenage adjustment issues, anxiety, depression, personality disorders, a little bit of everything in that role as well. So that was supposed to be kind of a side hustle and it's turned into a full-time private practice in addition to being at school. Because I like to keep busy, I'm also currently an adjunct professor at UB in the Mindful Counseling for Wellness Engagement and Advanced Certificate Program. It's a mouthful. I teach a course in the spring and one in the fall. Currently, I'm teaching a class called Yoga for Health and Healing. I'm teaching future therapists, school counselors, helping professionals about how to use yoga in their professional world to help others. In the fall, I taught a class called Self-Care and Service, and same type of population of graduate students using self-care, how to prevent burnout, those types of things. So that's really fun to kind of teach the future counselors things that I wish maybe I would have learned when I was in school back in the day. I'm a registered trauma-informed yoga instructor and mindfulness educator, and I'm a dog lover. So Georgie's, who is in the left corner, the white doggie, that is my dog that comes to school with me into my office most days. She's a registered therapy dog. And then I broke down over COVID and we got Georgie a brother, and this is Bubba in the right corner, who is a therapy dog in training. Very interesting how two dogs of the same breed can look so different and have such different personalities. But the therapy dog thing is something I'm really passionate about. I think it's important. It really helps in my school. Kids will come to see Georgie, they'll walk her. It's a nice way to kind of break the ice with students. So before we get started, like I said, this is going to be an interactive presentation. So I'm just going to ask you all to get into a mindful body. So if mindfulness and meditation is something that's new to you, I'll just walk you through this today. So what I'm going to ask you to do is sit in a comfortable position. If your feet are grounded down, touching the floor beneath you, kind of press into them. Feel your tush on your seat. Roll your shoulders back, and you can lift your heart. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes or lower your gaze, depending on what your level of comfort is. If you'd like, you can put your hands on your chest, and we're just going to take a few gentle, deep breaths together. So we're going to inhale through our nose and exhale through our nose. Gently inhale and exhale. Inhale, feel your chest rise. Exhale, feel your chest fall. Take one more together. And exhale. You can open your eyes and bring your awareness back to the screen. Just a way to get us settled as I start to share about the importance of self-care. A little humor. So I thought this was pretty funny. It says, I'm learning to relax, doctor, but I want to relax better and faster. I want to be on the cutting edge of relaxation. And too often, I think that's what this is. People see self-care as a way to learn, like I said, it's like a buzzword. It's like a hot topic. So it's just kind of ironic, right? When we think about what self-care really is and why it's so important. But yet on the other side, we're so programmed to do. So it's this conflict that happens for a lot of people. So what is self-care? So the way I describe self-care, it's an active and proactive role in one's overall health and wellness. So what I really say, it's something you do to fill yourself up. It has to be done on purpose and it has to be deliberate. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but the why you're doing it. So for example, you could have your morning shower could be an act of self-care. I know for me this morning when I showered, it wasn't an act of self-care. I got in, I washed my body, I did my thing, I got out, right? I wasn't mindful, I wasn't present. I was doing it as a hygiene routine versus a self-care routine. If I would have slowed down, maybe if I lit a candle, really smelled my body wash, felt the hot water on my face, that could have been an act of self-care. Again, it doesn't matter what you do, but it's the why you're doing it. Okay. Self-care, I think, is really important right now because it helps us manage stress. And let's be honest, as school professionals, this year has been wild, right? I've been lucky to be in school 5 days a week for the majority of the school year. Other, teachers are there only a few days a week. Some people are still fully remote. I know there's some Buffalo Public School teachers on the Zoom today, and I know all the stuff that they're going through. So yes, tons of times of stress, additional stress on top of our jobs. So, professional burnout is something I'm really interested in right now. I think that's a huge piece of this, compassion fatigue, and also obviously COVID fatigue. So if you're not practicing self-care, I think this is a time to really think about it. Because I really want people to think about self-care before you're totally exhausted. Too many times people will come in and say, oh, I'm exhausted, I burned out, I feel terrible, what do I do? Right. And then I'm building them back up, which is totally fine. But we can teach this to educators, counselors, even students in a way before they're burned out. I think we can do a lot of prevention, which as a mental health counselor, and a health professional, that's kind of where my focus is at. So it's going to empower people to create balance through your personal lives, your social lives, your work lives. How many times as school people do people say, oh, work-life balance? And we say, what? I don't know what that is. Does that actually exist? So self-care can help with that as well. And I love this last piece. It says, it's building a life that you do not need to escape from. Right. I know spring break is coming up for many of us. And it's like, oh, I just can't wait to get away, or I'm living for the weekend. And I think if we have that kind of dialogue in our head, we might want to take a moment and stop and say, whoa, is this the life I want? Can I reshape things? Can I reprioritize things? Can I make myself the priority? And then obviously mindfulness can be a form of self-care. And we'll talk about that in a few moments. So lots of people think of self-care. If I asked you guys, hey, what do you think? I'm sure you're going to say, yoga or facial or coloring or gardening or tea or buying yourself flowers. Yes, those are all forms of self-care, 100%. Again, self-care is anything you're doing on purpose to fill yourself up, right? So these are not bad ideas, but these are more of like the superficial ideas of self-care. And I can explain later if we have time, if people aren't interested, what is a gratitude jar? What does that mean? If you have some specific questions, just jot them down and I can answer them at the end. I want to take you guys a little bit further when I talk about self-care. I want you to, this is kind of cute, right? It's the self-care Sundays. I thought it's silly. So what I want you to think about though is self-care in a different way. So I want you to think of self-care as an opportunity to use your failures as opportunities to grow. It's learning how to ask for what you need. It's not about treating yourself better, but rather parenting yourself and making choices for you in the long term. So it's not just about like instant gratification, it's long-term gratification, long-term wellness. It's putting yourself at the top of your priority list. Keeping a to-do list to only 3 things. I'm going to teach you a trick at the end, what this can look like. Random acts of kindness, saying yes more than you say no, but also learning to say no, right? To kind of make sure your plate is not overflowing. Practicing self-compassion. If this is something you're interested in, Kristen Neff is a fantastic researcher. She has got some great TED Talks and videos and books out there. So self-compassion, especially for school people, is a really important topic. Sometimes self-care is doing the hard stuff, right? It's doing the things we want to avoid, but by doing it allows us some freedom, some space. It's creating boundaries and also ending toxic relationships. So, when I think about self-care, it seems kind of obvious, but I think if I were to ask people how many of you are actually practicing self-care on a daily basis, many people would say, oh, yeah, probably not. Right. I'm assuming that a lot of people maybe come home and by the time they get home, take care of themselves, even just the logistics of laundry, making dinner, paperwork, whatever it is, and then it's time for bed. So what gets in our way of making ourselves a priority and doing self-care? So yeah, our jobs, right? Our family. People say, I don't have any time for this. Maybe they have no ideas of self-care. Maybe they have faulty thinking about themselves that like, oh, I can't do that. Like I'm not worth it, or everybody else is more important. Stress can inhibit self-care. If you're a workaholic, lack of boundaries, people pleasing, life changes and transitions. Hello, COVID, right? Perfectionism and burnout. So this is my favorite self-care quote. You can't pour from an empty cup, so take care of yourself first. It always makes you think of when you're on that airplane. I know many of us have not flown in a long time because of COVID, but when you're on the airplane and before you take off and they're giving you that speech, right? Like in case of an emergency, what do they always say? They say, take the oxygen mask, put it on yourself first before you help the people next to you, even if it's your child or your spouse or whoever you're traveling with. They say, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And I think that's the key here. We have to help ourselves before we can help others. You all came to this profession as school counselors because you care for kids, you care for people. And burnout in the helping field, oh my gosh, it's tremendous. And especially now with all the extra stressors of this past 12, 13 months. So this is where I'm going to ask you to kind of participate with me. So it's just not me talking at you for an hour. So I'm going to ask you all to take a piece of paper and you can draw a self-care wheel. So if you notice, it has 7 slices. So if you're someone that wants to have everything equal, you're going to have to adjust. And the way that I ask people to do this is make a big circle. And then you're going to draw a center line through it. Let me see if I can do it, even though I'm in a little screen here. Let me see if I can make myself. Okay, so you're going to draw a center line, put a dot in the middle, and then make a V for the top, like this. So now you have 3 on the top. Draw a line directly down. It's like a peace sign on the opposite half of the circle. So you're going to come up with 7 triangles, I guess I'll call them. You can see that. And then I wrote in this the slide, you can see the names of them. But if you want, you can always just put the names on the outside of the circle here. So because we're going to jot down ideas in each of the 7 slices of self-care. Okay. So when I think about self-care, people often say like, well, I don't know what to do. What does that mean? Again, does that just mean going to yoga? Does that mean like a hot cup of tea? What does that mean? So I'm going to offer you some suggestions right now, and you can write things that come up in your own mind. But again, I'm going to go through each of the 7 dimensions, giving you some suggestions of ways to fill these dimensions of self-care. And then we'll also put in at the end an intention, a short-term intention, which is something that I'm going to ask you to do in the next week, and then a long-term intention, which we'll do over the next month. And the reason I'm using the word intention versus goal, because goal is something you can fail at, right? You either achieve it or you don't. And like, let's be honest, we don't need to have any more criticism in our life. So we think about intention, and intention is something we're putting our energy towards. You can't fail at that. Okay. So hopefully you have your 7 slices set up. And let's do the physical one first. That seems to be the easiest thing that people think of. So brainstorm in your head right now, and I'm going to offer some suggestions, such as enough sleep, drinking water, movement. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's a bath. Maybe it's a massage. Maybe it's a skincare routine. Maybe it's yoga. Maybe it's painting your fingernails, if that's something that brings you joy, makes you feel good, right? So thinking about in your own life, where is some physical self-care? I might even add in there too, like hugs. Like maybe you're someone who's a physical touch, and maybe you're like, oh gosh, I haven't had much physical touch. I need to kind of add that back in. So maybe jot down a few ideas in your physical self-care. And let's move over to emotional, or the red one. So emotional self-care, when I think of that, that could be feeling your feelings, journaling, going to therapy, talking about your emotions, setting boundaries with people. That could be, anything kind of like that. That could be reading some self-help books, some podcasts, things that are going to help you with your own emotional regulation, your own emotional management. So maybe it's a couple of the things I mentioned sound good to you. Jot a few down in your triangle. Social self-care makes me think of anything you do that revolves around other people. So this could be maybe you have a friend you haven't connected with in a while. Can you set up a Zoom? Can you actually, the weather is getting nicer besides the weird tornado today, but can you go for a walk with a friend? Can you leave your office and talk to a colleague for a few minutes today? I mean, I know I get myself sometimes, I'm like, I haven't left my office all day and I've been with teenagers and like, oh my gosh, like I need some adult interaction. So is there, people or a group? This group is a great example of social self-care, right? Connecting with other school counselors. Maybe as things start to open up, maybe you played rec softball, maybe it's, another group or organization. Spiritual self-care. This can be anything that makes you connect with something bigger than yourself. It doesn't have to be God, but if that is part of your life, that is an example. It could be reading affirmations. It could be community service. It could be getting out in nature. Connecting with nature can be a form of spiritual self-care. So something bigger than yourself. Intellectual self-care examples can be things that are not work related. So it could be watching a documentary just because you're interested in the topic. It could be learning a new hobby or skill, a new recipe. It could be learning a new language. They have all those cool apps now like Duolingo and things like that, where you can hop in and be on an app for 10 minutes and learn a different language. It's anything that's using your brain that's not work related. Okay, again, it's filling us up, making us feel good about ourselves. Sensory is a little different. This is where I ask you to think about your 5 senses and pick one thing to self-soothe in each sense. So for example, visual. People might say looking at a photo album, watching a sunset, watching a funny baby or cat or puppy video on YouTube. What can you look at that can make you feel good? Auditory, people often say music. Maybe you have a favorite song. Maybe you have a pump up like playlist, right? Even maybe it's music from like your high school days, like some fun things to bring you back, get you in a good mood. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe auditory is sound machines with like rain sounds or ocean waves. Touch, I like to think about my favorite cozy blanket or a weighted blanket. It could be a hot shower or a bath, anything, hand massage, anything like that could be a sensory for touch. Smell, aromatherapy is always my go-to. So maybe doing some essential oils could be helpful. And taste, is there something that, is it that hot cup of tea, that your favorite tea or coffee? Right? What is it that you could put in your mouth that's just going to say, ooh, I like this. This makes me feel good. And then last is pleasure, jotting down a few ideas of things that make you feel good. So this could be for maybe playing with my dogs, it'd be going to the beach. It would be a yoga class. It could be cooking. It could be anything, gardening, anything that just like makes you feel good. And again, it could be something that will take 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days. But think about those things. If I asked you, what would be your perfect day? What would that include? And I'm going to have you think, do I do those things? Are those part of my daily routine? And I'm going to say for many people, it's not. So how do we add that in? So I just went through this very, very quickly, just for the sake of time, and you can elaborate on this activity in your own time. But I want you to pick one thing, one specific thing that you are going to focus on in the next week as an intention. So maybe it is connecting with that old friend. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's going for the walks. Whatever it is, jot it down, because we know if we write things down, we're more likely to accomplish them. And then also a long-term one. So now between now and the end of April, we'll say, what's something else you'd like to kind of add into your self-care routine? I have some self-care, I have some planners that have spaces right in there. What's my self-care activity of the day? And again, it doesn't have to be big, but again, it's anything that you do with intention, deliberately to fill yourself up. Because we know when we fill ourselves up, it's going to help us prevent that stress, that burnout. Okay, so little hands-on activities. So I'm just going to keep going. I won't we won't do these right now because of time, but I can send this out to you guys. I know this is being recorded, but here are some great journal ideas, right? So journaling is a wonderful thing to do, some just fun journal prompts. You can try out at your own pace. Sometimes people are like, I don't know what to write about. This is so weird, but we know that there is this connection that journaling can help process what's going on. If you're not a Dear Diary type of person, no worries. There's bullet journals. There's all sorts of different types of journals depending on your personality type. So here are a few of my favorite self-care tools. So pockets of peace. This is a term I kind of came up with randomly a few years ago and it kind of stuck. So often I think, where will I have time to do this? So I look for pockets of peace throughout my day. Maybe it's when I'm at school and a student is leaving, and before I allow another student to come in, I take a moment, just take a deep breath, right? Giving myself a minute, 2 minutes, just to kind of collect myself. Maybe it is, having my therapy dog at school is great because Georgie has to go outside. I get to take her outside, walk around the building, take a deep breath, collect myself, come back in. For you, maybe it's your commute. Maybe it's between home and school. I think in this past year, a lot of people missed that because there was no commute, right? Your commute was from your kitchen to your home office or to your dining room table where I'm sitting right now, right? And so we didn't have that commute, that transition, people really started to struggle. So finding these little moments, little snippets throughout your day, just to kind of breathe, collect yourself, check in. That's called a pocket of peace. The next one we're going to try together is called a brain dump. So this is one of my favorite ones. And it sounds silly, so I want you to try it. So this is great if you have trouble sleeping or if you're just feeling overwhelmed, if you have one of those brains that starts to swirl. Grab another sheet of paper. And what I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes and literally just write down everything that's going through your brain right now. Now, let me just be clear. We're not making a to-do list. We're writing over the word. So you could say grocery shopping, whatever's, my child, what my meetings. So take, 30 seconds, close your eyes. It's got to have your eyes closed. This is not about organization. It's about dumping from here onto the paper. So close your eyes, dump it out, dump, dump, dump. And see how that feels. So again, the brain dump is not a to-do list. It is literally jot, 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 write it down, write it down to get it out of your head. So this, like I said, is great for people who struggle before bed. It's really, really helpful. Most of the time when I recommend this in therapy to people, they're like, what do you want me to do? And I just try it, trust me. And they come back the next week like, oh, you were right, that works. Like, the things I suggest are evidence-based, right? It's all science. I don't always explain it to students or to adults when I'm working with them, but it does work. Managing a to-do list. So we won't do this, but I said maybe we'll try it, but for the sake of time, we won't. So what I encourage people to do, write a list. What do you have to do today? Top 10 things. Put them in priority, right? What's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. For the next thing, take the top 3. Cross off the bottom 7, right? So top 10 list, what do you have to do today? What's at the top, what's at the bottom? Cross off the bottom 7, circle the top 3, because what happens is when you look at the 10, your brain gets overwhelmed, right? And that's like, a lot of people are like, I can't do anything, I'm shutting down. But if you only look at 3, it's much more manageable. We also know that our brains like to feel accomplished. So check, check, check. 3 things are checked off that top of the list. Great. Now I can go to the next 3, right? So when our to-do lists are overwhelming, too big, it's not as productive as smaller, specific tasks. I wrote down here, make your bed. So there's a lot of research out there, again, that your brain likes to feel accomplished. So taking a few minutes each morning and making your bed, I don't know how long it will take, but not very long. And what you're doing is it's self-care, right? You're creating a kind of a cleaner, nicer space. Your brain is feeling accomplished. And then when you go to bed later in the evening, it's like a kind of like a gift to yourself. I use this a lot with teenagers too, because when teenagers are depressed or struggling, where do they like to go? Their bed. When they're learning from home, in bed. And I say to teenagers, Your bed is for the 8 hours of sleep only. You're not allowed in your bed unless you are sleeping at night. Because the bed's the vortex of teenage depression, right? And so then I say, well, let's make your bed. You're less likely to get back in your bed under the covers if your bed is nicely made. So it's kind of a twofold approach for adults, but also for kids as well. I also tell kids, get out of your bedroom, right? If you have kids struggling with motivation, distraction, depression, that anxiety, get out of your bedroom. Okay, 5-second rule. This is a good one. I love this one. So this is when people are struggling with motivation, right? Like, oh, I have to go do the dishes, or oh, I don't want to do it. I got to go exercise, whatever it is. So we know neurologically that there's a 5-second window between an urge or a desire and doing it. So if I say to myself, I have to go do the dishes, for example, and so I say I have to go do dishes, and if I don't start moving towards my kitchen in 5 seconds, it's not going to happen. And the reason that is because our brains don't want to be uncomfortable, right? Doing the dishes is uncomfortable. Let's be honest, right? It's not my most favorite activity. So again, I have to do the dishes and I sit here, it's not going to happen. But if I say I have to do the dishes and I count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. As I'm counting out loud, my brain is focused on the task. I'm moving in the direction of the kitchen. I'm more likely to get it done. So when kids say, Miss Vallis, I can't get my homework done, right? I can't do that history paper. I say the minute you have the thought of, oh, my history paper, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, moving to your desk, moving to get your book out, opening your computer, that will help you get started. Again, it's all based on your brain not wanting to be uncomfortable. Getting out of the bed in the morning, great little tool for that one. And the last thing I'm going to offer you guys today, some of my favorite tools is the first 10 minutes of your morning. So research tells us the first 10 minutes of our morning really can shape our day. So thinking about what was the first 10 minutes of your morning like today. I know for me, I have the bad habit of, the alarm goes off, I reach over, I grab my cell phone, I scroll through my emails, and then guess what happens to my brain? It's like, I'm already in like work mode, who's having a crisis, what's going on? So I'm really personally trying to say first 10 minutes, no phone, get up. If it's being really mindful in my shower, if it's taking a few minutes to do some yoga or some stretching, maybe some journaling even can be that time. So 10 minutes feels like a lot when our alarms go off very early. But again, if you can break down the first 10 minutes to get your day really started in a self-care way where you're the priority, setting the tone, setting the way that you're approaching your day can be a huge game changer. So again, just a few of my favorite tools that I use and I often teach. If you're an app person, these are not anything new, but Headspace, Insight Timer, Calm. There's Grateful, which is a gratitude journal. I know a lot of times for educators, I know Headspace has an educator membership. Calm used to, I don't know if they have one currently. They were having some issues over COVID. But again, a lot of these apps, if you log in as an educator, you can get a free membership, and which is great. Calm has some really amazing things for sleep. Again, if you're someone that struggles with sleep, there's some sleep stories, guided meditations, things like that. And these are just some fun books. I got a ton of books I'll share with you in just a moment. But these are some that I just use. Start Where You Are, Design a Life You Love, this happiness list, things that we can do. The list one, it's somewhere, it's actually on my desk over there, but it's one of my favorites. You jot down a list once a week and then there's an action item. So like one would say like, what's your favorite day? And you jot down all the things. And then at the end it says, how many of those favorite things are you doing today? This week, plan on incorporating those into your day. So again, self-care and putting yourself first doesn't have to be a huge deal. It's just taking a moment and like, what do I need? Checking in with yourself emotionally too. So I'm just going to shot, let me see what's, this is cute. This is Bob. Bob takes time out every day for self-care. Bob is smart, be like Bob. And we're going to do a meditation, but before we do that, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen to show you a couple books too that I have that are really, really great. So this is called, I didn't post it, but it's called Onward, Cultivating Emotional Resilience in Educators. And again, I can post these, I can send these to Terry and she can post them. There's also a workbook that goes with it, a really great workbook. So in your school, if there's ever an opportunity to do something for teacher burnout, these are great resources. Things, I mean, there's obviously mindfulness and things like that, but just really great, like how to prioritize yourself. So an amazing resource for educators. I also have things like take time for yourself, self-care action plan for educators. So lots of different resources, giving you ideas, strategies. I'm a book junkie. You'll see I have like 1,000 on my desk to share with you right now. I can't say I read all of them because I work a lot, but I think osmosis works, or at least I'm trying to convince myself. This is a book that I use in my grad school class about self-care, The Resilient Practitioner, Burnout and Compassion Fatigue Prevention, and Self-Care Strategies for the Helping Professional, another great resource, lots of hands-on activities. You can do like a gratitude journal. And then this one is 180 days of self-care for the busy educator. So again, different things. And in my perfect world at Nichols, I would offer a self-care workshop for our faculty, but schedules, it doesn't always work out that way. Something that was really interesting at Nichols this year is I run a health and wellness club. We call it Heart Club. But I had students come to me and they said, they call me DVAL. They said, DVAL, we need to do self-care for kids. We need to do self-care for students. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. So we created a self-care series. So we're setting up our second one already, but I teach a yoga class, and the first one was self-care and journaling, and I had over 50 students join. It was totally optional. They joined, we did a yoga practice, and we did journaling. The next one we'll do is a yoga practice and mindful coloring. So the students are hearing this term self-care. And so, it's never too early to get the high schoolers onto this concept of how to take care of themselves. There's a great, I'll post it to Catherine Cookatone, who's one of my mentors at UB. She's got the great self-care scale. I use that in my 9th grade wellness class. I've had each student do a self-care assessment, and then we'll go through what are self-care things that you can do. So again, even 9th graders can learn, what does this concept mean? It's not selfish, it's survival. So getting them to learn that they're allowed to be putting themselves first, they're allowed to have those boundaries, they're allowed to ask for what they need, as well as I need to just breathe, right? I need to go for a walk. What is it that they need? So those are a few self-care books. And again, I can shoot those over to Terry and she can get them out to you just if you're looking for some additional resources. So that's self-care on fast forward or on speed. So now I'm going to just kind of shift gears a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to check my time. Okay, so I was going to meditate with you guys. I don't think we'll have enough time for it, but just because I want to kind of quickly get through the other information I have. And if we have time at the end, I'll loop that back around as a way to close. Okay, so, So the other thing, it kind of all goes together is bringing yoga and mindfulness in school. So I just want to introduce this topic. And again, I'm happy to come back if people are interested in how to develop a mindfulness curriculum in your school, how to bring yoga into your classroom. So I'll go through it quite quickly, but just to give you a little bit of a sprinkling and get a little taste of it. So people often say, do I need to be a certified yoga teacher? And the answer is no, right? So there's no consistent set of standards from what I understand about bringing yoga into school. There is always kind of concerned is yoga and mindfulness religious? And the answer is no. Yes, there are some things I might teach in a yoga studio that I wouldn't teach in my classroom, like different language I might change, but it's not a religious practice. So we'll talk about it then in a moment. I think if you want to teach it, you should have your own practice, right? Because again, kids know, right? If you're standing in front of the classroom saying, you should meditate, you should take care of yourself, and you're not doing it, they're not going to get that buy-in. Be comfortable with what you teach. I've done the Mindful Schools training, which is wonderful. I'll give you some information about that at the end. Omega Institute in the eastern part of the state, they have some great trainings. Little Flower Yoga has great kid yoga training. I actually did my yoga teacher training through Yogis in Service. That's actually with Catherine Cookatone, who I just mentioned. That's a local trauma-informed program. And there's tons of options out there. So you might not have to do a 200-hour or something. There's always, especially now with Zoom, there's tons of online resources and trainings to kind of get you to be more comfortable if this is something you'd like to bring into your school. So why yoga in school? Because the best part about yoga is you can't do it wrong, right? Yoga is not about being perfect. It's about self-acceptance. Anyone can do it. You don't need to be flexible. You don't need any equipment either, right? We're going to do a few things right now in a few moments together that you can do at your desk. It helps physically, emotionally. And the biggest thing, it's not just about the movements. People think of yoga, they think of a downward dog, they think of a vinyasa, they think of a tree pose. But what yoga is really about is how you live your life, right? Living with kindness and compassion, living your truth, right? Working through hard, uncomfortable situations. So there's tons and tons of lessons that you take from your mat into the classroom or into life. It's really hands-on experiential learning if you think about it that way. We know that yoga can decrease anxiety and depression symptoms, huge what's happening in high school students right now. It can increase energy, promote strength, flexibility, body awareness, improve focus, improve body image. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So many benefits. And again, what is it going to look like? It's going to probably be different than what you expect. So exactly. So this is an old picture of Chrissy, I forget her name, Chrissy Teigen, I think her name is. So she, no, that's not her name. I can't remember her name. But anyways, that's what people think of yoga, right? And it's not. Yoga in schools can be little kids meditating, little kids in their classroom. And these are little kids, obviously, but high schoolers. I do it in my classroom all the time. I do it in my school, and kids buy in. They really, really do. It's all about the buy-in for the kids. So what does it do? Again, focuses on your breath, acceptance of yourself and others, lots of benefits. So how do you do it, right? So you're thinking, okay, I can see the benefits, but how do I actually make this happen? Obviously through a physical education class is one way, but teachers can do it, right? Classroom teachers can do it. It doesn't have to be a big deal. So I said you can use yoga deck cards. So I'll show you all my tools at the end, but there's decks of cards where you can have students pick a card and like, let's do that posture. You could start every class with 2 or 3 postures, right? Pick a card. There's yoga breaks. Again, if kids are getting squirrely in a classroom, there's times when, even high schoolers, right? You look out to your classroom and you're like, oh, they're kind of dead right now. Get them up, get them moving, can help re-energize them. Make it part of your routine. Weave into your units. Again, it can be anywhere you can throw it in. I know for my students, they know that we're going to start each class with meditation or a mindfulness practice, and sometimes that includes mindful movement. So they know, Miss Vallis, this is something she's really passionate about. This is going to be part of when I'm in my wellness class. This is all of it. And like I said, the students came to me and said, can we have more yoga? Can we have this self-care series for students? We need this. Students are suffering. So I'll just show you, these are a couple things that you can do. And again, I'll stop sharing my screen just to show you, we can practice it together. So in your chair, so you sit up, you can sit at the end of your chair if you'd like, and you can ground down your feet. If you'd like to participate, you can. I'll just do a few poses you can do in your classroom. If you have your hands on your knees, you can do what's called a cat-cow. It's just a nice spine stretch, I'll say. But you can go cow pose as you tuck your chin, roll your shoulders. So hands are on the knees, eyes gaze down. So roll those shoulders in. That's cow. And then cat is roll your shoulders back and open up your chest this way. So you can go back and forth. I mixed them up. Sorry, this is cat and then cow. And then one more. Cat, tuck the chin, roll those shoulders, and then cow can come back up. Good. You can do things like a seated twist. You can inhale your arms above your head and then reach behind. So if I'm twisting to the right, my right hand will come around, my left hand will come to my left thigh, and you can twist. Inhale, arms sweep back up and twist again. Arms sweep back up and arms can come down. Good. You can do things where you just you can reach up and a nice side stretch. Come back up and the other way. Good. things like that. You can do a modified figure 4 hip opener where you take your right, I can't see me, but you take your right ankle, put it on your left knee and press on that knee. Beautiful hip opener. So there's a variety of chair yoga you can do in your classroom. And really it will take, people can do in their classroom, will take 2 or 3 minutes, not much. And again, it just kind of gets kids settled and balanced through their day. There's things you can do standing as well. And I'll show you a few other options here. So standing, you can do tree pose, crescent moon. There's a bunch. And again, just if you know a couple that you feel good about, teach those, right? I don't know how many school counselors are actually in the classroom, but we can teach our teachers how to do this, right? Again, it's going to help the kids with focus, with feeling good, the mind-body connection, which is really important right now. Let's see this one. Okay. There's things you can do, partner poses, again, just a variety of yoga you can do at your desk with the students. Younger kids, you can use imagination. That's really a fun kind of way to integrate it. And yoga in schools is not going to look like yoga at Power Yoga Buffalo. It's not going to look like yoga at East Meets West, right? You're going to have to adapt it to the school setting and the population that you're working with. Okay, so mindfulness and yoga are separate but together, right? Yoga is a mindful movement. So when you're mindful, again, it's like being present. And again, I could go on and on about this, but I'll give you just a little bit of an overview. I know this is something many of us have been studying, but it's about being present, not getting stuck in the past, not getting stuck in the future. So, why is this so important in schools right now? Focus, stress reduction, less emotional reactivity, improving sleep, increased creativity, more dopamine, clear, calm, concentrated states of awareness, better with academics and athletics. So when I introduce mindfulness in a typical school year, every Monday I get up in front of my entire school of 400 students and faculty members, and we do a mindful moment every Monday morning. Mindful Mondays, this is what we do. And sometimes I get up and I do a mindful lesson. Sometimes I get up and we just do a breathing exercise together. Sometimes I show video clips of people who are using mindfulness. And kids are getting into it. Especially when I try to relate it to what they're doing. I show a clip of Kobe Bryant before he passed away, but he was a huge meditator. So, hey, athletes, look how Kobe Bryant's using meditation. There are some rap artists that are really into mindfulness and meditation. So, hey, look at these people using it. Look at all these different celebrities and people that they try to relate to, and how is mindfulness kind of cool, but also how is it going to affect positively affect them. I talk a lot with athletes too. I give them the example of, who's the best foul shooter, right? And they'll give me some NBA player. I don't know. I say, okay, like if he's the best foul shooter, why is he not getting 100? Why isn't he 100% of his shots going in? Oh, he's distracted, the crowd, blah, blah. Exactly. He's not present. He's not mindful. So let's talk about how mindfulness can help athletics. How can mindfulness help theater, musicians, right? Not just academically, but finding, what's going to work for that child or that particular group. It's all about buy-in. When students think it's like, oh, like meditation like that, they're like, what is that? Like, no, thank you, right? But again, if you do it in small snippets and you talk to them about, okay, you're really stressed out right now. Let's do some deep breathing. What is that like? How do you feel now? Have them practice it over and over and explain to them that their brain is a muscle, right? I wouldn't ask a student, just go run a marathon, right? You have to train for it. The same way you have to train your brain to think in this way. So again, it can be done formally. It can be done informally. I know sometimes I tell kids at school, okay, let's all practice mindfully brushing our teeth. Right? Formal meditations can be mindful yoga. It can be a body scan. That's mindful. That's really formal mindfulness, but mindfulness can also be done in your everyday activity. Let's all mindfully walk to our next class. What would that be like? Right? Even, you can play some music. Let's do some mindful listening. I do mindful coloring. And again, I often have these tools with me. So just kind of reading the room, sometimes even like a day like today, we're going on spring break. It's our last day of school today, but what's the vibe in the classroom, right? Am I really going to get through what I want to get through? Or is this a day to throw in some mindfulness or some yoga or something like that? right before exams. I definitely do more of this type of stuff. So again, depending on your school, depending on your role, if this is, if you ever want me to come in and teach your teachers, I'm happy to do that. Do a presentation to teachers of how to bring it into the classroom. Or if it's, can you do something in your school, a mindfulness club, those types of things. There's, we just kind of have to get creative. I know our schedules have been a little bit wonky this year, but maybe moving forward for next year. So again, how do you use mindfulness in the classroom? It could be the check-ins, it can be taking a break, it can be mindful journaling, all sorts of different ideas, kind of things I've already just shared with you. But again, it's going to help them calm themselves, help them with focus, help them with their mood, just feeling more grounded. So remember, teenagers think that they're crazy, right? Teenagers always, am I crazy? Like, no, you're a teenager, right? Your brain has all these emotions going. How do we bring it down? How do we help the teenagers feel more, and I hate the word control, but how to help them manage their emotions more? So how do we get started? So if this is something like, how do I bring this to my school? Again, teaching what you know, your own practice is important. You can do things like connecting to the senses, imagination, plan and schedule mindfulness practice. Some schools, I'm working on this. I haven't done this yet at Nichols, but having a mindful space, having a room where kids can go and they just need to decompress. That obviously would have to be kind of monitored by an adult a little bit, but in that room, I envision some beanbag chairs, some yoga poses, maybe yoga mats, maybe a sound machine, some mindful coloring, some putty, some tactile things too, that when kids are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, they can go to the calming center or whatever you want to call it, and just kind of collect themselves and then move throughout their day. I mean, if we can teach teenagers, be aware of your emotions, don't be scared of them, thinking about your emotions, just information, learning how to work with them, we can really help them be better adults. So these are ways that mindfulness can kind of help with that as well. And the other piece of this is when teenagers are like, well, I can't be quiet. Like, what are you talking about? I can't quiet my brain. Again, remind them that it's practice. It's called a yoga practice or a mindfulness practice. But assure them that it's okay to get off track. The idea if they can sit and just be still, keep their body still for a moment or two, that's a win. So it's going to take some time. Apps, good old apps again, Headspace, Calm, there's tons of them. Gratitude, Buddhify, 10% happier. Lots of things out there to get you started, especially now with COVID. There's more and more free apps, things on YouTube. Again, find what works for you and works with the population you're working with. Breathing techniques, these are a lot of the things that I was teaching to my entire school. 4 square breathing. My favorite one actually is the idea of you inhale through your nose for the count of 3. You exhale for the count of 6. And if you do that, a handful of times, what it's going to take your brain from that sympathetic fight or flight state to the parasympathetic rest, digest, calm state. So even teaching kids, why am I doing this? If you're working with kids who are sciencey, teach them a little bit the neuroscience of it. Like, talk to them about their nervous system and why this works. This is just not hokey pokey stuff. This is all science-based. So even thinking about it, you can connect it with your health curriculum as you're teaching body systems. Like, how can you include yoga and mindfulness in those lessons? Candle breath. The other one I like, the 5-finger. You inhale up your finger, down your thumb, inhale your next finger, down. And you can Google all these. I'm sure they're all online. But again, if you have 2 or 3 in your toolbox to share with students coming in, stress about the college process, things like that, I think it could really, really valuable in your school. You could do a mindful eating exercise. I've done that in my yoga, in my 9th grade health class, teaching them about how to mindful eat. We do activities with raisins, helping them just kind of slow down, be aware of your senses, be present. Mindful listening. I do use a singing bowl sometimes to start my classes. So I have a chime, kids like that. Sometimes kids like, can I ring the bell today? Sure, go ahead. This can be helpful. Mindful coloring, like the elephant that's on the screen, mindful walking. So again, depending on so many options. And then I think the really important part of this is the role of yoga and mindfulness as a trauma-informed school. So this past year has been traumatic, right? You know, for all of us, for the teachers, for the students, for the families, right? Kids are going to be coming back to, I mean, they're already back in our schools. They'll be back in our, coming back saying, sometimes, being home was not good for kids, right? Depending on their family situation, where we don't know what's happening at home. Maybe they lost loved ones to COVID. Maybe people have been sick, family members have been sick. Maybe parents have lost jobs, right? There's all these changes and it's been very, very traumatic. And so I'm really working hard to kind of teach and exist as a trauma-informed school, recognizing that everybody is bringing trauma. We're all bringing our trauma to school. Kids are bringing their trauma to school. And we think about a trauma-informed approach. It's not like, why is, Jimmy being such a pain in the butt today? I like to think like, what happened to Jimmy? Why is Jimmy behaving in this way? Why isn't Sally doing her homework? Why is she failing 5 classes? Well, a trauma-informed approach would be like, well, wait, time out. It's not really about Sally not doing her homework. Something's going on. What's getting in the way? So looking at like those disruptions, behavioral problems as ways to be like, what's happening with the student? How can I better support them? And then as you help the student regulate their emotions better, then you're also going to help create a safer school, a safer classroom. So again, this trauma-informed approach is really important, especially with COVID and moving forward. So that's kind of the yoga mindfulness piece. And I'm going to transition now to the EMDR piece. Again, this is like 5 lessons in one. So EMDR, I'm not sure if people are familiar with what this is. So this is a trauma-informed approach to therapy. And I recently did the EMDR certification or EMDR program through Annie Monaco. Annie Monaco is an EMDR trainer, the Monaco Training Center here in Buffalo. And I've been looking at this for years to do. However, with being a school person, it never worked, right? It was like trainings during the day. I'm like, there's no way I can do this. But a year ago, Annie decided to do one for school people, for school counselors, school professionals. So over COVID, I worked with probably 20 other school counselors from all over Western New York, school counselors or school mental health counselors, and we did EMDR. So we learned about how to do it and how to do it in a school. I'm going to give you a little idea of what EMDR is, but I'm going to just start by saying I don't use this in my school right now. I'm not using full EMDR at Nichols because my role at Nichols is not to engage in full-on counseling. Right, Nichols is set up differently as a private school. I am the only licensed mental health counselor for my entire school. My role is a little bit different than maybe a school social worker or a school counselor in a public school. So depending on how your school is set up, but I know there were definitely people in my training who are working in public schools as school counselors who had every intention of using it with their students. Even if I'm not doing full EMDR, I'm using a lot of the tools, a lot of the grounding techniques and things from that training at school right now. So if this is something that you've thought about, definitely check out Annie Monaco's trainings because she might have another one geared specifically for school counselors. And she did that in a way that worked with our school schedule. After school trainings, weekend trainings, break trainings, which was really, really nice. And also working with other school people, we could work together to say, well, how does this look in your school? So what is EMDR? So EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So it's a type of therapy that can use with trauma. And when people say the word trauma, they think big trauma, like big T, sexual abuse, physical abuse. Yes, we use EMDR for that. But we can use EMDR for bullying. We can use EMDR for things that are causing anxiety, any type of bad thing that's happened to you. And again, when you go through EMDR, you start to learn like, oh, we've all had bad things happen to us. And that makes us human, but we want to work through things so they no longer have such emotional sting. So what EMDR does is works through processing old memories. It goes through refiling those memories in your brain. So the idea is that we have memories, they're stored in our body, and often they are stored, like at the front of your brain. So it's easily accessed. So if you have a memory of a car accident And now every time you get into the car, you have a little bit of anxiety. It's because that memory is at the front of your brain. It's and you're easily accessing those emotions. But what EMDR does is you reprogram that memory. And so then what I think about is I kind of file it away to the back of my head. So that memory of that car accident is still there. It just doesn't have such an emotional sting to it. So it's not hypnosis where I'm going to make you forget things. It's going to take a memory, make you think about it in a different way. So the memory is there, but it's not so traumatic. It's not so so much like emotion to it. And I'll explain in a minute how this works. So the way that we do is we use bilateral stimulation. So what that can be is, watching someone's fingers. I have tappers you can use. It's basically, any sort of back and forth pattern. So EMDR, what is it? So before EMDR, you have a trauma memory. And then something about that memory gets triggered in present day, and you have a really big reaction. Okay. So it feels like the trauma is happening right now. And that trauma memory then makes you believe I'm not good enough, right? I'm unlovable. I'm stupid. And then we go through our lives thinking I'm unlovable. I'm stupid. I'm bad. But when you use EMDR, what happens is you have the memory, you reprocess it or refile it as I think about it. And so now when something happens that makes you think of the trauma, it's like, oh yeah, that happened. And oh, wait, I'm okay. I'm good enough. It lets trauma stay in the past. You're not reliving the trauma. And EMDR really came up through PTSD, right? You started to use this a lot with, veterans and people like that, but now we can use it for all sorts of things. So this is a lot of words, but a lot of what I've just said, it's a phased therapy. It's a phased approach. It's very specific. You have to be obviously trained in it. But what I want to just really focus on, the third bullet down says sore spots. We all have them. So this is how I explain it to people in therapy is let's pretend, I always say to people, let's pretend in second grade, you were in the cafeteria and your little second grade self is going to sit down at a lunch table. And the mean girl says, Danielle, you can't sit here. We don't like you. And so little second grade Danielle's like, oh, okay. And I walk away. And I walk away thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not okay, or I'm a bad person. So this bad experience of kind of being rejected in the cafeteria, I now have a negative belief about myself. And I'll go with the negative belief of like, I'm not good enough. And now this negative belief stays with me. Okay. And when I don't feel good enough, maybe that leads to some depression, maybe it feels some worthlessness. And so I'm carrying this around with me. Now, 40 years later, 30 years later, anytime someone rejects me, maybe someone doesn't return a text message, maybe I see on social media, my friends are out to dinner and I wasn't invited. So now what happens is I explode. I'm crying in my bed. I feel like the biggest loser ever. I'm not good enough. And what's happening is the I'm not good enough and that really large emotional outburst is not about not being invited to the dinner party. It's really based in the trauma back in second grade. And so what happens is our trauma is stored in our bodies. Our brain changes because of trauma. And what we do is we tend to put ourselves in situations to make that belief come true. So if I feel I'm not good enough, then I might put myself in unhealthy relationships. I might put myself in toxic work environments where I'm reliving or I'm creating this narrative of I'm not good enough, right? And so it's all based in the past. So we all have these sore spots where we explode with emotion or we have really high emotional responses. But it's not about what's happening today, it's about the past. So what do we do with this? So in EMDR, what we do is we would take a memory and we would reprocess it. There's different techniques and ways to do it through eye movements and retraining that thought. So the thought is I'm not good enough. What we do through EMDR is we help people believe I am good enough. Right. So it changes all of these negative beliefs, these core values, as I call them, and we're able to reprocess them, redigest them in your brain to say, I am lovable. I am good enough. And what we know through EMDR is that it's very effective and effective in a timely way. Yes, people can process trauma through just talk therapy, like CBT, DBT, yes, but EMDR has been shown to move through traumatic experiences a lot faster. It's very efficient, I would say. So EMDR, if you're an EMDR therapist, as I am, I don't use it in every single session, every single time, right? But I do use it for most of my clients nowadays, right? Because we all have these traumas to say, what does this negative experience make you feel about yourself? What would you rather feel about yourself? And how do we help you get there? So I know when I first learned about EMDR, probably 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I was like, what are we talking about? Like, this is like voodoo, like back and forth eye movements. Like, what does that mean? But I'm really thankful that I took this training. Like I said, I am using it mostly in my private practice. I am using some of it in school. But again, like I said, my Nichols role is not set up in a school to do it, but in your school, you might be set up that way. You might have individual counseling sessions with kids. And I had people in my training that were elementary school counselors using it. So again, we can use EMDR with children, teenagers, adults. And there's different ways, obviously, to explain it to the different age groups. But it's really, really fascinating. And again, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. It's just something else to kind of keep the mind turning, even a little bit of intellectual self-care, learning something new, those types of things. So I know that I just threw a ton at you guys between self-care, through yoga and mindfulness in your school, through EMDR. So what I'll open up for some questions in a moment, but this is my information, and please let me know if there's things that you want specifically to send you from what I talked about today. If there's ever a need that I could come in and talk to your school or talk to teachers or a different organization. My brother is a high school music teacher at North Tonawanda, director of fine arts, and he called me the other day and said, hey, Danielle, I need you to do some self-care training for the New York State Theater Association. I said, all right, sign me up. I know that in May, I'm headed to Frontier High School to do a training on teenagers and mental health for people at Frontier High School. So I do a lot of trainings through schools, through organizations around any sort of like health and wellness topic. If it's what we talked about today, if it's mental health issues, kind of a little bit of everything. And I love getting out and sharing what I know and learning from the people that I get to talk to. So just before I'm going to stop sharing, before I open up to questions, I'm just going to give you a couple other resources that I have near me. This is a great book. This is actually Catherine Catone's book, Mindfulness and Yoga in Schools. This is a great resource. It tells you exactly kind of how to do it. This is the Mindful Schools Curriculum for Adolescents. So this is one of the trainings I've done. It's a fantastic resource too. Gives you lots of ideas. And then just like there's, mindful toolbox. And again, depending on your role, again, if you have a few that you like, make some worksheets. And when kids come in, pull it out. I also have like cards you can do. Again, kids come in, start your meeting with, let's do a mindfulness activity. There's like dice you can use, roll the dice out. Let's kind of focus. What are the dice land? How's it going to help you geared up for our meeting at school today? Yeah, tons. I have lots of different cards. Cards seems to work well in schools and with kids. It's like, hey, pick a card. Let's get started. Or you might end your session with a student at school. Let's do a calming, grounding activity by using, I have like calm cards and mindful games cards or whatever it is. So again, just some things to kind of get you thinking of tools, resources, and things to bring to your school and into your practice working with students. So I know I spoke really fast. I gave you lots of stuff. You'll probably need your whole entire spring break maybe to digest it. But again, please, if you have questions, throw them out. You can just unmute yourself if you like, or put them in the chat. And again, if there's not questions today, if you want to email me separately, call me, whichever is the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm happy to support you, your school, your students in any way that I can.
Danielle, I think one of the questions I have, and I've actually done some trainings like Gina, in fact, one of the books that I have right here in front of me here is called Taking in the Good. by Gina Beagle. And it's really good. It has some quick little mindfulness activities for students. But one of the things that I always worry about, or maybe I've even met, even with my own, like I have 3 of my own kids, is just that concept when you mention mindfulness or meditation, right away, like I feel like their brains shoot to the like a negative kind of like response to it. So kind of how do you cut through some of that?
So some of it, like I said, if depending on what the students are interested in, I'll relate it to something they're doing. So again, the athlete one is probably the easiest one, or I'll say to them, have you ever studied really, really hard for a math test and you go in to take your math test and then your mind is blank? Well, yeah, like, well, what happened? You just had all that math information. Where did it go? So I'll explain, you have 2 brains. You have your emotional brain and you have your thinking brain. And when your emotional brain is super stressed and wild, the part of the brain that knows all those math equations says, see you later. I don't want to deal with you. So now you're sitting in your math test totally blanked out. So I'll say, you know how we can get those 2 brains back in order? Your breath. Take a few deep breaths. And they'll say, oh, that's stupid. Like, just try it. Let's do it right here together. And I'll do it with them. How did that feel? Weird. Let's try it again. Right. And so just trying to get them to, kind of buy in. And again, even adults. I mean, I've been introducing mindfulness at Nichols for now probably over 10 years, 12 years. And at first I got so much I don't say pushback, but be like, what are you talking about? What? Like, that's so who, whatever. But now I've been adamant, doing presentations after presentations, bringing those mindful Mondays, starting every single one of my classes with a meditation. People have now bought in. So know that if you're bringing this to your school, it's going to take time, but don't get discouraged. And so maybe it's, introducing it to the other people in your own office. Start with that. Maybe it's a small group of students. Maybe it's at home. I know I have 2 step kids who are in 8th grade and 10th grade, and they laugh, but literally every day before we eat dinner, what do? Singing bowl, right? Nope. Before we can eat, we all have to get into our mindful body and ding the bell, and then we can eat dinner. They hate it. I don't think they totally do. I think they do it because I'm their stepmom. Like, oh, come on, that's so dumb. But they both struggle with some focus. They both struggle with some anxiety, right? They're teenagers. And so I'm not giving up. That's all, I just have to keep at it. Or, kids will say, I'm not sleeping well. Oh, let's try this to help with sleep. Again, oh, you're overwhelmed. Like, find kind of like the problem, and then maybe using these techniques as ways to help solve the problem. And then take it the next step further to say, let's not do it as a problem solver. Let's do it as prevention. So those are maybe some different strategies of how to introduce it. And again, you don't have to use the word meditation or the word mindfulness. You can just say, let's just collect ourselves. Let's just ground ourselves. Find a word that maybe is less scary. I will say on the Calm app, if you have students that like Harry Styles, he has a bedtime reading. So you can be like, hey, you like One Direction, you like Harry Styles? Check out that, right? Again, you just kind of have to hook them. And that is probably one of the hardest things. But I find that once they buy in, they're pretty into it.
Yeah, I had thrown in the chat about the Calm app. I had attended a training and they gave us a code at one point for the Calm app. So I'm not sure how many other counselors here have the Calm app, but it is so my favorite. And they actually now just recently came out with mindful music where they have like very popular music, but in like piano and like really soft sounds. It's really, really nice. So if you guys have opportunities and can seek out that access to that Calm app, it is it's a nice app to use for yourself and also to be able to pull up in your office when you're working with students. It's really good. So the other, I don't want to monopolize all of our questions here, but the other question I have and this is more globally for everybody here, is I know at South, we're always finding it hard to get in the classrooms to really be able to introduce some of these concepts. So I am kind of curious from other people in our group, how are you guys getting into classrooms and instilling some of these kinds of practices? So I guess our silence might mean that nobody is getting to classrooms and being able to do this. So I mean, I guess this is where we kind of like stop it. You know, this is where one of the problems ensues. So Jessica, did you have something you wanted to add in here?
Yes, so I'm at Mount Mercy Academy, and this year we actually extended our homeroom period. So we changed our schedule up a little bit because of COVID, and we weren't sure how, being a private school, how transportation was going to affect students getting here on time. So that was the initial reason for changing, extending the homeroom, but now it's led to us having that opportunity in the mornings to incorporate some of these things. So on some days they'll go to like club meetings or they'll get help from teachers, but then we have like every Wednesday is Wellness Wednesday. So we'll do different activities for that. And then Mondays are Mindful Mondays. So we've set up activities for that too.
Thank you.
I would also suggest, like one of my art teachers has bought into mindfulness. So she uses in her art classroom because there's like for coloring. So, I mean, if you have, a teacher that might be more open to this, try to, just tap into one teacher, right? And give them maybe one tool to do, or, and have them start it. And then the kids will start to like it, right? When I do it before each of my wellness classes, if I forget, kids will say, oh, wait, we didn't meditate. Like kids will start to ask for it. And it's like finding just that one teacher that's going to help you do it. Or when you're having, well, if you can ever eat lunch with people, but over the lunch table discussion, you can say, when kids are transitioning from class to class, do you find that they're squirrely? How do you get them focused? Kind of just getting like an elevator pitch, how to sell it to one teacher or two teachers. And then I think it will spread, honestly.
Does anybody else have any questions for today? I know I was going to say one or two other resources. I have.
Oh, that's what I have then.
Yeah, that's what happens when you go to these things. I actually attended a training with Gina Beagle on mindfulness-based stress reduction for teens. And so if anyone's interested in something like that, I know she has been advertising, and I'm not a plug for her, but I attended one and I thought it was really good. We just work and struggle at our end on trying to, like I said, find our tribe and get into the classrooms to try to have those kinds of things. But the trainings that are out there are really good and have some wonderful ideas to bring to the table. So
I wondered, here's an idea. I don't know how it works in public schools as far as like professional development. Like could you ever say, I could come in or someone could do a training for the teachers of how mindfulness can help the teachers, and then it's almost like a trickle down effect. So maybe even start top down of, okay, teachers, you're all stressed. Here are a few techniques. Oh, by the way, you can use it for your students, maybe. So something like that could be a way to do it as well, or back to school, PD, something for teachers, hands-on stuff. I know, like I said, at Nichols at first, people were like, thought it was kind of like, but for the most part, it's amazing. When I do a Mindful Monday with 400 students and a bunch of teachers in the auditorium, you can hear a pin drop. It's it's actually brought me to tears a few times. I'm like, holy cow, they're doing it. They're starting to get this. And every year kids are doing research projects, senior theses on mindfulness and meditation and this type of stuff. So again, I think if we can get it, the kids, not all of them, but kids will get there.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, thank you. It's 10 o'clock. I don't know if we are people open to doing a quick practice, doing a mindful meditation. If we are, we can go ahead and do that. And for those that want to stick around and have that little self-care, why don't we do that? And then we'll have that to close our meeting for today.
Awesome. And please feel free to reach out if I can help in any way. Like just holler for sure. Let me just find what I was going to read to you. Okay, I'm actually going to turn off my video just for a moment and pull up. Oops. One moment, I apologize. Okay. I was going to read you the loving kindness meditation, the meta meditation, but as I'm looking down, oh, I actually have it. I'm just kidding. I have it. I use it as my self-care wheel. Okay, here we go. So find yourself in a mindful body. So what that means is round down your feet. Your spine is straight. Roll those shoulders back. Lift your heart. Maybe close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take a nice deep inhale through your nose. Exhale through your nose. Become comfortable in your chair or cushion in a nice relaxed posture with your shoulders relaxed. Allow your hands to rest comfortably on your hips or on your lap, settling your awareness into your body, and take another nice deep breath. Feeling into your body right now, noticing what's here. Open to whatever is to be experienced in the body in this moment. Connecting to the breath, noticing the wave-like movements of the belly. In this practice, we'll be cultivating loving kindness. We all have it within us, this natural capacity for loving kindness or friendship that is unconditional and open, gentle, and supportive. Loving kindness is a natural opening of the compassionate heart to ourselves and to others. It is a wish that everyone to be happy. We begin with developing loving kindness towards ourselves, allowing our hearts to open with tenderness. Now allow yourself to remember and open up to your basic goodness. You might remember times you have been kind or generous. You might recall your natural desire to be happy and to not suffer. If acknowledging your own goodness is difficult, look at yourself through the eyes of someone who loves you. What does that person love about you? Or you may recall the unconditional love you felt from a beloved pet. It may help you to imagine or picture yourself as a young child standing before you, perhaps maybe ages 4 or 5. If that allows you tender feelings of kindness to flow more easily. And as you experience this love, notice how your body feels. Maybe you feel some warmth or heat in your face, a smile, a sense of expansiveness. This is loving kindness, a natural feeling that is accessible to all of us, always. Resting with this feeling of open, unconditional love just for a few moments. Letting yourself bask in the energy of loving kindness. Breathing in, breathing out, inviting feelings of peace and acceptance. So beginning now to wish yourself well by extending words of loving kindness to yourself. I'll be offering as guidance the phrases that I've chosen to use in my own practice. You're invited to alter these phrases and choose whatever words to express your wishes of loving kindness towards yourself and others. And now offering these words in your mind to yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in loving kindness. May I be connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. And now repeating in your mind these words of friendship and kindness to yourself once again. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. Now you can open the circle of loving kindness by bringing to mind someone who is dear to you, someone who you care about and who has always been supportive. Reflect on the person's basic goodness, sensing what it is in particular that you love about him or her. In your heart, feel your appreciation for this dear one and begin your simple offering. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be held in loving kindness. May you feel my love now. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. May you know the natural joys of being alive. Now bring to mind a neutral person. Think of someone you might see regularly, but don't know well. It might be a neighbor, a grocery store clerk, a colleague at work. Bring this person to your mind now and repeat the words of loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be held in loving kindness. May you feel my love now. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. May you know the natural joy of being alive. And now, if it's possible for you, bring to mind someone whom you've had a difficult relationship. Perhaps it's someone you don't like or feel sympathy or compassion for. Seeing if it's possible to let go of feelings of resentment and dislike for this person. Reminding yourself to see this person as a whole being, deserving of love and kindness, as someone who feels pain and anxiety, as someone who also suffers. Seeing if it's possible to extend to this person the words of loving kindness in your mind. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be held in loving kindness. May you feel my love now. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. May you know the natural joys of being alive. Now allow your awareness to open to all directions, yourself, a dear one, a neutral person, and a difficult person, and all the beings, humans and animals living everywhere, living in richness, poverty, war, peace, hunger, abundance, aware of all the joys and sorrows that all beings experience. And share this. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be happy. May all beings awaken and be free. May all beings be happy. And now bringing this practice to a close by coming back to extend kindness to yourself, sitting for a moment and basking in the energy of loving kindness that may have been generated in the past moments. Take a few deep breaths here, taking this warm feeling throughout your day and your weekend. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes, bring your awareness back into the space. So thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for practicing. I know the loving kindness is extended, but it's an extended example of a formal meditation. But again, just those few moments that we started with, those inhales and exhales, again, that's a great way to start. So if this is something you can take in your personal life, your professional life, and then to share those around you. So again, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Terry, for inviting me. Let me know how I can help in the future. And I look forward to staying connected to you all.
Thanks so much, Danielle. And you have a nice break. You're off. You're lucky you are off for
2
break.
weeks.
We have one more week, or at least most of us have one more week before break. So hopefully you will have nice weather and get to enjoy your time. So
Absolutely.
thank you for today.
Thank you so much.
It.
Absolutely. Enjoy, guys.
And
Thank
if you want to send me any of that information, I'll post it for our group. Okay.
Will do. Awesome. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.